Welcome to the Fibromyalgia Podcast. I'm Tami Stacklehouse, fibromyalgia coach, author, and founder of the International Fibromyalgia Coaching Institute. The goal of this podcast is to empower you with access to the dream team of experts and coaches I've discovered are key to living the fibro life you love. From the comfort of your own home, and maybe even your pajamas, I'll help you take back control of your life and health. To help out with fibro fog, I always include full show notes and additional resources at fibromyalgiapodcast.com. Welcome to the Fibromyalgia Podcast. I'm your coach, Tami Stacklehouse, and this is episode 101. Today's episode contains excerpts from our recent Fibromyalgia Stories of Hope and Healing event. During the event, I interviewed Kirsten, Tami, and Laura about how they were able to improve their fibromyalgia symptoms during our 3-month Certified Fibromyalgia Advisor class. On average, these 3 women improved their fibromyalgia impact questionnaire score. You can kind of think of that as a measurement of how bad their fibro symptoms were. On average, they improved their scores by 51% in just 3 months. So what would your life look like if your symptoms were cut in half? What would you be able to do that you can't do now? Now remember, these are real people who really have fibromyalgia, and they're sharing their real life experiences. Of course, they aren't perfect. Life certainly has had its ups and downs, as you'll hear in the interviews. There were big trips and fibro flares and new diagnoses and all kinds of other life things going on. Now, as part of their interviews, Kirsten, Tami, and Laura do share some of their personal medical information, which means they're only sharing to the level that they feel comfortable. We know thousands of people listen to this podcast all over the world, so they might be sharing less than you wish that they would, but just know that this is why. They are sharing to the level that they feel comfortable, and know that if they're not sharing details, it's probably because they're not comfortable with that. So we ask that you would honor and respect that. As always, of course, I want to remind you that the information shared in these interviews should not be considered medical advice, and it is not intended to replace talking with your doctor or other qualified healthcare provider. We're simply sharing the personal experiences of the people that I'm interviewing. And our wish is that hearing their stories will give you some new ideas that you can take back and share with your doctors, and some encouragement and hope that maybe you can feel better too. Now, if you're interested in checking out the full event, we will link to that on today's show notes page. Just go to fibromyalgiapodcast.com/101. I would love to take a minute to meet each of our graduates. We're actually going to start with Kirsten, who is in Dubai currently. You'll remember she is originally from Germany. She's German, but she's in Dubai. Kirsten, in class, I never knew where you were going to be. It's like, where is Kirsten?
I know, I travel a lot.
I know. Where are you connecting from today? But you are at home in Dubai today, correct?
Yes.
Awesome. So I would love to just kind of start with you talking about one of the things you first said to me when we very first met was that you were a huge fan of the podcast. You've learned so much from the podcast and that you really enjoy it, but the class took everything to a whole different place for you. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, that's true. I'm a big fan of your podcast. I think I've listened to at least half the episodes. So I'm working on listening to the rest always when I'm driving in my car. The difference between the podcast and the class, I think, is the podcast is the theory. It's something I do passive. Like I listen to something, I listen to what you're telling, I listen to the experts that you invited. You're sharing a lot of different things there. But in the end, if I just sit there and listen and say, hey, this is good information, but then I don't do anything, it's not changing anything. I'm a consumer basically. But in the class, I cannot just consume because I have to do something, I have to actually work on something. So the difference for me was the class actually got me into an active state of mind. I started doing things that I did not do just by reading a book, or, there are so many self-help things out there. I could just read books all day long and nothing would change. So that's for me the biggest difference.
Yes, definitely. I totally agree with that. I mean, how many times have we read something or watched a video or whatever it was and been like, oh my gosh, huge light bulb moment, but it doesn't actually change your life because you haven't taken that next step then to implement things, just because life is like that.
Exactly. Yeah.
We're all busy. It's just crazy. And that's definitely one of the things that I tried really hard to do with the class. So those of you listening, the homework assignments that you get in the training program are taking what you learn and applying it to your life. So like Kirsten said, you kind of can't not do it. Now, I know that one of the other things that was a huge difference for you was actually working with your coach. So can you talk a little bit about that?
I think that's actually the best part about the program, to be honest, because a coach, or especially like the coaches that we have, are trained, like they went through the same training that we were doing. So they kind of knew what we were doing in class and, also the experiences that we had. And my coach, she always kept me on my toes. Like we met every week, and every week she followed up on the things that we had discussed before. So one week it was like, did you make that appointment with your doctor that you said you're going to do? One week it was like, did you start the meditations? Did you research for a meditation app, which I had promised the week before? So it was kind of a friendly kick in the butt every week to keep me accountable. And that's the difference, again, between the podcast and the class, because there is an actual person that you sort of have to report to. At least I felt like that. I want to be a good student, so I want to do my homework.
Right. Make your coach proud of you.
Exactly. Yeah. And not show up to another meeting and say, oh, I didn't do that. And I also didn't do that. And then she would be like, well, I can't help you. If you're not doing your homework, if you're not doing what you're planning on doing, then nothing is going to change. So you always have to become active and do the things.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And, you are not a stranger to any of this, right? Like you are a trainer, you're certified in the tiny habits, and all of this is not new to you. So, how was it for you being like on the other side of the table? Not being the coach, but being coached.
I mean, it's always different. When you're the coachee, you have to do the things that you usually tell other people to do. So it's again the theory and the practice. You actually have to walk the talk or walk the walk, whatever the saying is.
Right.
So yeah, you actually have to do the things and not just tell others.
Right. Right. And that is such a key thing, because again, it's not knowing the information that actually creates change. It's doing something with the information that you're learning. So that's great. Now, you came into the class really doing quite well. Your fibromyalgia impact questionnaire was fairly low. You were definitely in the mild category, but you still improved by 10%. So I love that, because I think so often we get to a point where we feel pretty good and we kind of think that that's it. Like that's as good as it gets. I know I've been at that place several times myself, and then I'm always surprised and delighted when I find, ooh, I can be even better yet. So what did you do to improve your fibromyalgia over the last 3 months, even though you were already doing really well?
I mean, my worst time was from 2015 to 2017. Back then, I did not even know that such a thing as fibromyalgia existed. And I got my diagnosis in 2019, so a couple of years later. So in those few years between me feeling super, super bad and actually getting my diagnosis, I have already changed a lot of things. That's why I am probably at a better starting point than a lot of other people. But still, in the few months that we did the class from like fall last year until now, I have changed a lot of different things. And I would just group them into fibro knowledge and personal choices.
I love that.
So the fibro knowledge, the first thing I did was when I started class and I started working with my coaches, I fired my doctor who had diagnosed me in 2019 because it was pretty obvious to me that she was not on my team. And she had recommended for 2.5 years that I take one medication because my biggest issue is sleep. I don't have the widespread body pain, at least not to an extent that most other people have it. For me, it's only phases that I have body pain, but usually I'm very good with that. So my biggest issue is sleep, always has been. And I wasn't getting anywhere. I was taking amitriptyline, I can say that, for 2.5 years and nothing really changed it. So first thing, fire the doctor, look for a new one. I started working with a naturopath and he is on my team. So he's working for me. So with him, I did a lot of different tests. I think we pretty much did all the tests that were recommended in class. So any test we talked about, I did it.
Yes, I remember
so
that.
I have to say we have very good health insurance here in Dubai. So I know that not everyone is able to get all these tests, but I was like, well, if I can get them, I might as well do them.
Yeah.
Based on that, I started taking a lot of different supplements. They have really helped me. They have pushed me. So I hardly have fatigue anymore, which was a big issue before. And I started reading a lot of books on fibromyalgia, which I did not do before. So that's what I call the fibro knowledge. And then the personal choices were things in my day-to-day lives that I changed. So I restarted meditation, which I had done in the past. So during my really, really bad times when I was like in very bad physical shape, I had done a lot of meditation and then sort of stopped. I thought I don't have time for that, or I wasn't interested. I didn't have the correct app. So I had a lot of excuses for that. It was just excuses. And now I restarted that with the help of my coach. For me, that's the biggest game changer because it really calms my chitty-chatty fight or flight brain down. Another thing I stopped was I'm a big yes sayer. So I say yes to a lot of client requests that don't necessarily suit me. That's one thing I'm still working on. It's not perfect, but I'm getting better to say more no than yes. If, for example, they want to have a session at a time that doesn't suit me or something like that. And also I have informed all of my clients because I do have a few personal training clients still. They do not have fibromyalgia. So they are let's just call them healthy people. Yeah. They want to be pushed, they like their hard workouts. I informed them, I'm showing you 2 repetitions and then I stop and you do your thing. And I also made the decision to discontinue one online video course that I was recording every week that was beyond my physical capabilities. After every recording, I noticed I had muscle pain for a couple of days. So I stopped that. And that has really improved the muscle pain I have. So those were pretty much the 2 things I did. So get a lot more knowledge and make wiser personal choices. I'd say that's the biggest difference for me over the last couple of months.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And I know I just saw a question come in asking what supplements that you take. If you're anything like me, I mean, my list is huge. So I just want to say for those of you who are wondering, I actually recorded a podcast episode where I talked about all of my supplements. So I don't remember off the top of my head, but if you look for the one, what does Tami do? Keeping fibromyalgia in remission. I actually talk about all of the supplements that I take. But Kirsten, could you just mention like a couple of the ones that you take that you feel like have really helped you?
I mean, in the evening, I take magnesium. I've done that for 3 years. So pretty much from the beginning of my diagnosis, I take magnesium. I have just recently started taking progesterone as per recommendation from my gynecologist. And I have also started over the last couple of months with melatonin, which is really good for me. It has helped a lot. Now I'm actually starting to back off on that because I don't want to continue taking that all the time. So maybe just on an as needed basis. And I have, what else am I taking in the morning? It's so much, I don't actually remember. I take definitely vitamin B12. I take a vitamin complex with different vitamins. I've taken a lot of different things. So it's like, if anyone wants to know, I'm happy to reply to an email. It's like,
yeah. And I think really like the best way we could sum that up is the supplements that you're taking are the things that it's that fibro knowledge again, right? Like the things that are shown to actually help with fibromyalgia, stuff you learned in class, and things that your doctors have found it like you need more progesterone. Maybe your vitamin D is low. So fixing those things that your doctors have found, and then also implementing the fibro knowledge that you learned. Do you think that's fair to kind of categorize it like that?
Absolutely. And I did not start all of those supplements on the same day. They add up every time I go see a doctor. I tell them how I'm doing. And then, we did another test or we found something different. And my gynecologist is great and my naturopath. So those are the two that I have been seeing lately. And they keep working with me because I find them both relatively knowledgeable. At least they have heard about fibromyalgia before. So,
yes, definitely. Definitely. So to wrap up then, I would love for you to just talk to the people who are listening, maybe that person who has been doing pretty well and thinks maybe this is as good as it gets, or the person who already knows a lot, or maybe the person who isn't sure about whether or not they should fire their doctor. And just sort of speak from your heart to theirs.
I would like to give two tips. The first one being, don't stop searching for an answer. Don't stop searching for a solution. Because for me, I've had sleeping issues since high school, and I graduated in 1997. So you can do your math. That's a long time. And every couple of years, when my sleep was super bad, I went to a new doctor and I looked for solutions. I searched the internet once we had internet. I tried to improve, but it didn't really get anywhere. Same with other issues. I had muscle pain today in my knee, 2 weeks later in my shoulder, 3 months later in my ankle. So doctors never really found anything. But every couple of years, I went to a new orthopedic doctor and, started to make an effort to improve, but I didn't get anywhere because nobody was like, oh, you have fibromyalgia. But I never stopped searching. So there will be an answer. You just have to find your answer. And the second tip I would like to give is start listening to your body a lot more than you are doing, because your body tells you exactly what it wants to have from you. Like my specialty is exercise. And if we take an example from exercises, you might be getting a training plan from your coach at the gym. And on most days, maybe you can follow it. But one day you're like, oh, I'm so tired. I really don't feel like I can do that program today. Well, what's going to happen if you actually do the program? Afterwards, you feel more tired. So you're not doing anything good for your body. But on other days, you might be able to do a little bit more because you're like, oh, I feel great today. Let's do a tiny little bit more than what I usually do. And your body told you that today you have more energy. So my advice is listen to your body, what it is telling you, what it needs from you, so it can be healthy and you can feel your best.
Yes, I agree with that completely. I always think that, that's probably one of the biggest differences between somebody that has their fibro well controlled and someone who doesn't, is that we are paying attention more or just know how to interpret what our body is telling us, right? Like there's some trial and error learning there too. Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Kirsten. It was awesome having you in class and congratulations.
Thank you.
All right. Next up, we have Tami. Tami Quigley in California. Hello. Welcome. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Now, one of the phrases that you said to me that I just loved was when you were talking about being on the struggle bus. So why don't we just talk about real quick, like, what does that mean to you? If somebody has seen me, put that in your bio and a few things on social media, what does that even mean?
This goes back to when I was younger and I had to take the bus. It was a new bus route, new bus, and I ended up back at school. And I was like, I never got off the bus. I didn't know where my stop was, or I didn't listen right, or I didn't pay attention. And so if you fast forward into my life and the correlation, part of me was with my chronic illness journey and with my fibromyalgia journey, I never got off the bus. I just struggled and struggled and struggled. And it wasn't until I got off the bus that I was able to bring the awareness that I needed help and I needed to get myself into that space to get help. But I just stayed on the bus for years. I mean, a couple decades, really. So for me, because I like to kind of put things into perspective, I'm a why person, I'm very process driven. I love that cliche term to the struggle bus because that's what it was. And then it wasn't until when I got off that I was able to, address the struggles.
Yes, definitely. I mean, I instinctively resonated with that phrase, but I never asked you specifically what you meant. So I appreciate you sharing that.
Sure.
Now, you, just like Kirsten, are not a stranger to all this health fitness stuff. So talk a little bit about what that was like coming in, already knowing all of this. You had taught cycling classes for, I don't know, 17 years or something like that, right? Yeah. So you came in with all of this knowledge, yet you still didn't have what you needed.
Yeah, it was the complete paradox, right? Is I'm highly educated in health and wellness, and I lived a health and wellness lifestyle and journey. And in fact, I helped so many others. And so the twofold is that I really never took the time to help myself. It's like I could talk the talk, but I wasn't walking the walk. And then really there was just kind of this decade of time where I started to decline, started to feel almost like hypocritical, is like, I'm actually helping folks and I would help folks. And yet here I am not getting better, in fact, getting worse. And I knew what I was offering them was working because they were, for the most part, getting better, whether I was training someone to a triathlon or a bike ride or just in life with wellness. So I started to really feel like I needed to take the pause. And that's really just big in my journey, right? Is to take the pause. Hypocrisy is not a space I want to live in, right? And so it forced me to really pivot. And not only was I stopped dead in my tracks because I just had hit that wall, right? But it didn't feel authentic to me any longer, right? And so now working through the program and coming on the other side of this, I feel more authentic and that's what feels good. So now I can partner it all together and bring the authentic, the education, the life, and now the program. And then, my ministry is to help people from my heart. So that feels really good that, and we'll talk more about maybe where I'm heading with that, but it feels more authentic and that's what feels right.
That's awesome. And I think one of the really cool things that you did coming into this class was you kind of checked all of that at the door, right? And you came in and you were just so teachable and coachable, which I thought was just beautiful.
It was not easy. I will tell you, in a cycling class, if anybody in the audience has taken one, I'm just telling them you can make it 30 more seconds, 90 more seconds, give it your all. There was a lot of rewind and there was a lot of undo and rework. And I think that that's part of the beauty of my story in particular is that you can take the pause, you can be coachable, but I will tell you, for me, I had to get in a vulnerable space to do that. And we'll probably get to the coaching. If it weren't for my coach, I'm not sure I would have been able to be vulnerable and trust. So there's certainly tremendous benefits in navigating this space.
And I know you said multiple times that your coach was the perfect person for you. And one of the things, if anybody has ever gone and looked at our Find a Coach page, we don't really talk about where our coaches are because it's so much more important that you get the right fit in personality and their skills and expertise than it is that you find somebody who's close to you. So you had one of our coaches who's in Canada. So talk about working with Giselle.
Dream come true, right? So getting to Giselle, there were some little hurdles. And I look at life as there's a lot of hurdles. But if you just stop at them, I remember you saying, I really hope she has room, whether she's full. And that happens sometimes. And I just was like, it's got to be her for a lot of reasons. But the thing with Giselle is immediately the trust was there. Everything she offered in our first connect was, I really felt like that was somebody I could trust. And I have been in therapy probably my entire life, various coachings or life therapy. And if you don't trust the person that you need to be super vulnerable with, that's going to chew your butt, that's going to hold you accountable, and all the things you need and don't know you need, it probably won't end up with a really favorable outcome. Not to say you won't make gains, but I could immediately trust her. And that was a connection from the get-go. One thing that I know that helped personally was when your fibromyalgia re-diagnosed, in my case, right? I was diagnosed in 16, but I was also diagnosed with cancer in 16. And that took the forefront of the work I needed to do, and re-diagnosed a couple of years ago now, is I needed to get super vulnerable. I needed to have conversations with people that understood me. And when you're in this, whether you're working with a coach or in this program or in the full coaching program, chances are your coach has fibromyalgia or works with people that have fibromyalgia. You're actually talking to someone that understands you. And for me, that mattered the most, because for me, an outcome that I needed to do in this program was build my team of people. Like Kirsten said, fire your doctor. Yep, been there. Build your team. And when you're having a coach speak your language and helping you in that, I just can't say enough about it. And Giselle knew exactly how to talk me off the ledge, redirect me, listen when I just needed to spin, because I was in that moment of, both fight or flight and all the emotions coming forward. But she held me accountable in a way that I needed so badly and didn't know I needed. She is such a mom. She's got this, she did beautiful grown daughters, and she just worked that angle, which was what I needed. And that served me. That filled a void and was a voice that I really needed. I would say, here's my homework and here's what I'm working on. And she expected me to come prepared. I'm a process plan driven person. And so that match was like, yeah, I need to show up, but I wasn't ever afraid to ask her questions. Was never afraid to be vulnerable with her. And that personal connection was just, it allowed me to just open up all the places I need to in order to get to where I'm at today and to continue. She's not out of my
life. Good. Now, we should talk a little bit about what that means to build your team. Kirsten talked about it a little bit. You just talked about that. So for you, what team are we talking about, and what are you looking to build or design?
I have had a chronic illness diagnosis. I'm on year 13 with random, right? Put them out there. I'd fill a wall. And I've been chasing my health for quite some time. And in doing so, you try and find doctors that are going to help. So I tend to want to work in an Eastern medicine, right? I want to be at the chiropractor and the acupuncturist and with a practitioner, a functional medicine person. But there are definitely times that you also need your primary care physician and a neurologist and the Western side, and they both have tremendous value. So I have a very alpha personality. I'm very stern, and I want somebody that was going to listen to me and understand. They don't need to understand how to diagnose anything, but I'm going to need to have some tests run. And over time, I have fired neurologists. I need a neurologist on my team, not only for the fibromyalgia, but I also had a diagnosis of MS for 7 years. I don't have MS, right? I have things that mimic MS. So through navigation of this journey, building my team looks like being able to have conversations with practitioners, whether that's the Eastern medicine side, the Western medicine side, or hybrid, because they're out there, right? That you can speak openly with, that you can have conversations with, and they're hearing you, that they're also not afraid to be vulnerable. Like, hey, Tami, I'm not sure why you want me to run all these labs. I can't do anything with that. Okay, I'm not expecting you to. I might know what to do with them, or I might be able to bring them over to my other practitioners. And also a team of people where, like yesterday, I started lymphatic therapy, and she knows my massage therapist, my acupuncturist, my nurse practitioner, my primary care doctor. And my goal is that every time I'm with these folks, they know, oh, you just came from massage. Oh, you're heading over to acupuncture. Also, she said, next time you have acupuncture, let's work on these meridians, so that I'm actually working with people whom are cogging together. They're part of this hub. Like, I'm a bike gal, right? Is I've got this wheel and they're part of a hub. And so they're helping keep me going round. And so part of that is through this journey, I have figured out, oh, I need to add that practitioner. And so my first conversation is here's everyone I see. I'm going to go and build my team. And that is a team of Tami. And if they aren't on board, guess what? You're replaceable. We can do telemed everywhere now, right? I live in a tiny, tiny little town. I have to drive 2 hours to get to care. But we can do telemed. I telemed in San Francisco or shoot out of the state if I need to. And we have those luxuries now. So I would just encourage everybody. You may not know what your team is. It may start with 2. You may end up with 7. Just make sure that they are on your team always.
Yes, that's such a great way to put it. And I know that my team kind of built as I would sometimes get new diagnoses, right? Like, oh, now I know I have autoimmune thyroid. So now I need somebody who knows that. And oh, now I need to have a sleep doctor. Now I need a neurologist, right? So sometimes they happen that way, but sometimes it also happens just out of our own, I want to explore this.
I think I'm going to name one last thing. My massage therapist I've been with for years, I have a different body now than when I was an athlete training for all the things. I had to talk to her like, not as hard now, light touching. Don't get in there and rub that knot all the way out, because then I'm like hurt for 3 days and miserable. So it's just really being able to have those conversations. And if it doesn't work out, we may have to sever relationships, but that's just prioritizing self and living intentionally different.
Absolutely. I'm so glad you said that, because we do, like, our bodies change, we change, our needs change. I have had several fabulous doctors in my life, and often at a certain point, I would kind of be beyond where they could help me or into a different area that they maybe couldn't help me with. And I needed to move on to somebody else. And it wasn't that I didn't like them anymore or anything like that. I just had a different need. And I definitely see that with people. Massage therapy is such a great example, because like you said, our pre-fibro bodies often liked something different than our fibro bodies do. So yeah. Now, one of the things that I know you said your coach worked with you on was all of that guilt associated with taking care of yourself and taking time for yourself. How did that work out for you?
Fabulous. I really struggled with this one, Tami, and Giselle knows, and my friends and family know, is I used to associate self-care guilty, right? Is I had to be going and taking care of life. I'll just say life. I've been married for 24 years. I have 2 grown children, and I worked a career or 2 the whole time. So that doesn't come with a lack of responsibility and commitment. And I just always felt like I had to have that throttle up, doing something. And I will be honest, it was such a barrier to so many things. I didn't relax. I didn't sit down. I didn't care about myself. So when I was shifting to degenerating, I guess, right? Like, it really was a decade. All of my 40s, I was just in decline. And then finally got to a point where I was like, white flag up. I hit that wall and I'm done. But my mind didn't go there. And I was like, I have been this strong, heroic anchor, glue to our family, doing everything. This is my mind, I'm a hero in their mind. But like, I've driven this, and now all of a sudden I feel weak. And I had to make that transition, and it wasn't easy. And I felt guilty. And now I'm like, sweet, I'm going to sit around all weekend. I want to watch 4 movies on Saturday, because I didn't sit down. Ask all of them. Never sat down. She was always going, doing. I never prioritized myself. And the switch over to acknowledging and living with more intention came with some guilt in that transition. And Giselle was fantastic. And I will tell you, my family has been phenomenal, and my close group. I am so blessed to have a husband that supports me, kids that see it, and friends and family that see it. It's like, sit down, Mom. And so now you kind of laugh. I'm like, yep, still in my jammies. Might have gotten laundry done. And I don't feel guilty about not having everything done. And there's always, I would say, some baggage on how we arrive at that. And I just did the work to address it, right? I had some hangups. I'm not ashamed of those hangups. And I pride myself in taking care of myself. But one thing that came along, Tami, that you had said and we had learned in this program was, do 80%, right? You need to recharge. like your phone dies at some point, plug it back in. And there was all these little clicks. And I thought, oh, I never plugged my phone back in. I never plugged me back in. And no wonder I was running on empty. No wonder I was running on fumes. It's probably classic for a lot of folks, but the guilt associated with plugging myself back in was real. And I just worked through it because I don't think that's a healthy space to stay in. So if there's anybody that's in that space for whatever the reasons, spend a minute there, honor it, get it out, unpack it, and then I would just suggest and recommend start to work through that, because I will definitely say life on the other side of it is good.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's where working with somebody else can be so helpful, because they can be that reality check of people really aren't thinking about you like that. Everybody's worried about themselves.
Giselle was like, why? And I was like, oh my God, I have to answer that question. And then when you answer it, I was like, whoa, okay, and it's like, she wasn't questioning me. She was asking me a valid question. So I answered it. And then that started the progression of healing.
That's awesome. That's such an important shift right there. So I know that there's a huge part of your story that we still need to talk about. And that was actually part of this next question I want to ask you, which is what has changed for you over the last few months? Now, you actually came in with the highest fibromyalgia impact questionnaire score. You improved by 51%, which is not the highest percentage increase, but that's largely because your symptoms were so severe at the beginning. Right. So let's talk about some of the things that you've done over the last few months and what's come out of that.
Okay. So again, I was at a pretty low spot and I was thankful. The timing was really good. So there's a couple of things that were really key, right? In the program, there was some tracking done and I just keep on keeping on. I never really stopped to analyze, why am I always in pain? And why were things influencing? So tracking your steps, tracking your sleep, and looking at things as to like, instead of just saying like, I didn't sleep good, why? I'm a why process driven person. So you really helped us look at the why. And as soon as I started to take the pauses and looking at the why, I was like, oh my gosh, I just did 8,000 steps doing housework. No wonder I don't want to get on the treadmill and do 3 miles. I just walked it, and in my mind, I was like, I have to get all the housework done and get this done and get this done instead of just stepping back up. And so I would say like, get back up at that 5,000 foot view, really take a look at good things. So some things that I worked through in identifying was really living more intentionally. I just lived on go. Throttle down, go, green light, and I just kept going. And I don't know that that is really a healthy place to be in any body, let alone a fibro body. So living way more intentionally, journaling, even if it's just on a scratch pad, writing down things, living with more intention, paying attention to my steps, whether you're tracking them, or monitoring them in some way that is your way to monitor them. I would definitely say that that was key. If you're not sleeping right, start tracking, did I go to bed? When did I go to bed? Do I allow the time? Pay attention, set your bedroom up so that it fosters you to have that. And there's a lot of tools out there that we learned, your phone and TV being huge and just really paying and living more intentional. But the big takeaway for me with being able to make the adjustments and getting my number down was there are chronic illnesses associated, right? So there's fibro, but you have other things going on. Maybe yours is sleep and headaches. Maybe it's allergies for somebody, or it's a lupus or a rheumatoid issue or a bad knee. For me, I needed to look at all the external factors. I have Epstein-Barr virus, and I've had it most of my life, and it's been active that I know of about 2010 or 11. And I needed to address that before I could really focus on the fibromyalgia. There's, they mimic symptoms. So if there's an associated function going on, I encourage everybody to really look at that, because fibromyalgia is just going to amplify it. Where dimmer switch is going to be all the way up. The volume knob is going to be at 20. And if you address the ailment or the associated issue and you get that under check, chances are you're able to bring the volume down on your fibromyalgia and turn those pain down, and all the ways that happens. Very science-based, but very real. It happens. And so now I'll get into that vulnerable space that I want to share is I was so empowered through this program to address my thyroid, because it's just been a space of contention for me. And so I learned how to read my labs and how to understand them. And I've been with the same nurse practitioner for a long time. We've not always gotten along, and I've kind of wanted to fire her at times, and she's probably wanted to fire me, but we've stuck with each other. And so I was geared up and ready to have my conversation with her. And she said to me, well, I also want to talk to you, but I want to hear you. She knew I was in the program. She knew where I was going. And I said, well, I would like to adjust my T3, and here's why. Right. So we talked about all of that. I was really empowered to address why. And I was also willing to say, I know it might not work, but I want to try it. And so she was all in. And then when it came time for her to talk to me, she said, I've missed something for a while and I wasn't paying attention. So I'm going to pause right there and give about a 2-minute on my journey as to why I am looking forward to this next chapter of my life. In 1996, I had a breast reduction and I was severely disfigured because of it. And I went through life, married a wonderful man, had great children. And my GYN one day said, Tami, I'm really concerned we can't do lump detection. You're so mutilated and your tissue is so bad that I really would like you to see a specialist on this. So took some time, found a specialist, and my specialist spent 4 hours reconstructing one breast and 2 reconstructing the other. And as a result of that, I needed implants put in order to make my tissue normal. And in my mind, regardless of however you end up with an implant, I never associated that day I might have put something very toxic in my body. And as a result of that, I was diagnosed in November with breast implant illness, BII. And it blew my mind and saved my life. I'm sure of it at the same time. So my husband and I do a deep dive into this and down every rabbit hole possible. I'm now well connected with a community of ladies who have been on my struggle bus. I never saw them on there. I've got new friends. I am so excited to announce that I am having a procedure called explant on February 24th. And through everything that I've learned with this program and the support I've had and the new diagnosis, which I'll pause, new diagnoses for fibro people can send you flat down into a flare mentally in a moment. I want to honor that because I did. I fell down for a minute and then I was like, no, this could be my thing. And after a lot of research, I'm very confident that these toxic things in my body that I will get to remove and the healing process with my team of people that I've built based on a lot of the work I've done here, I'm going to be able to heal in this next decade now in my 50s. I spent 40s very sick. I've now turned 50 and I just cannot wait to live a healthier life. I know how to do it. I have the tools and the resources to do it. I just haven't been able to. And I'm confident that this diagnosis is a good thing. And I'm really excited not only to help others, many hundreds of thousands of women have implants. And for all the reasons that they have them, I bless them. But I also want to bring this voice into my practice of ministry to help women acknowledge that they also might be making you very sick. There are other silicone and saline aspects that we may have in our body for whatever reason. They may be making you very sick. And I would encourage everybody to seek some research or a doctor. It's not widespread acknowledged because it can't really be yet, but there are a ton of resources out there. I'm one of them. Please be in touch with me if you want to have a conversation about this. This will be my ministry. I'm very proud that I'm making these decisions. And had it not been for this course and really becoming vulnerable in this space, I'm not sure I would be ready to head into this next chapter. Mm-hmm. So figure out what else is going on in your body and don't be ashamed or afraid to have tough conversations or vulnerable conversations to heal.
Yeah. Oh, that gave me goosebumps. The thing with fibromyalgia, it's, as you said, it's such an amplifier, right? And so it's not an either or thing as well, right? I really want to point that out. We're not saying that, oh, you've never had fibromyalgia. It was always BII. No, you probably have both things going on because you have, like your Epstein-Barr, all of those things are going to cause pain, cause fatigue, cause brain fog. But fibromyalgia is the part that then cranks it up.
Yeah. And if I don't address these other things, I might stay cranked up so long that I just flatline, right? So if I address these other things, I am confident that remission is in my future. I am confident because I would know how to get the volume down. But one of those is addressing these associated concerns, these associated health issues. So
Yeah, because we can do everything possible and take fibromyalgia out of the equation as much as possible. But if you still have these other things that are causing pain, causing fatigue, like then it's never gone completely. So it takes both. We've got to address those other conditions and we've got to address the fibro aspect of stuff. So yeah, great. Great job. So I want to give you a second with all of the things that you've talked about. I'm sure that there are people listening who are resonating. So I would love to just give you a second to talk to them.
If you're on the struggle bus, there'll be a stop to get off at. And if you get off and you feel alone, you're not. Search Tami, start there, right? That's how I started. I was like, oh, sweet name. I'll start there. And lo and behold, right? I'm like every podcast in and now here, but you're not alone. Even if you felt like you were sitting alone on that bus, I didn't realize I probably had a ton of people on there with me, but I was really just not able to see them. So you're not alone. There are a tremendous amount of resources out there to help. And this being one of them, this probably being the predominant one. And I would encourage you to build your team of practitioners. Again, Western, Eastern, a hybrid. If it's not serving you, it's okay to go. You close the door, didn't slam on you. Be in charge of that and close your own door. And then last but not least, prioritize yourself. You are the most important thing. My coach taught me that I'm my own best friend, right? And so what advice would I give my best friend? Would you let your best friend talk about themselves like that? Prioritize yourself. And I will tell you, I have seen the change even in my family, seeing that I prioritize myself. It's like we've gifted each other this life back. And it's not too late. Whatever age you are, it's not too late. So take the pause. Kirsten said it. Say no so you can learn to say yes to the things that matter, and take the pause.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being vulnerable and sharing your story. I cannot wait to hear how things go with your explant surgery and recovery. And
thank you.
Congratulations.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. Now we are off to Laura. This is not her first rodeo here. So welcome, Laura, and congratulations for graduating a second time.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I loved graduating a second time. I think I'd learned my lesson the first time, but I didn't quite learn everything I needed to.
So that, I think, is a great place to start. Why on earth did you take this class a second time?
Well, when I finished the course in 2015, we graduated in 2016, and I felt like I had the world by the tail. I had it going. And over the course of the last 6 years, it all started falling apart, one stone at a time. And I went from being able to schedule my life to my life being scheduled for me again. And that's when I knew I had to get back into the class. I had to begin back, with the foundation that I'd been given before. Instead of just jumping into a coach, I felt like, no, you need to get back to the basics and learn the material again and do that alongside with a coach.
Yeah, that's great. That's kind of the theme that we've been talking about this whole graduation, right? Is that it's not just about knowing the stuff. It's about putting it all into practice, and life happens and we slip.
Exactly. I had been in a 12-step program and still am in recovery from my 12-step issues. And we have a slogan, you got to work the program for the program to work. And so I felt like I had to get back with the program so that I'd have the tools to make it work again, because it does work. But just like in a 12-step program, you need a sponsor, you need a coach.
And I do remember you telling me, I remember you saying it multiple times, you will never, ever be without a coach again.
No, I like to plan my own life versus life being planned for me. So
talk a little bit about what that means when you say that. I know what you mean, but for people who might not.
Yes. So let me go back just a little bit into my journey. I have had autoimmune issues since I was 12 years old, and I'm 52. So for 40 years, I have had one autoimmune. Started out with rheumatoid arthritis, and it just has been one thing after another. So I have 7 different little diseases I carry around, and they rear their ugly head. And so with working with my coach, I really learned my limitations and really learned that everybody else in the world, the expectation is you walk 10,000 steps a day. Well, for me and my 7 diseases, it's not going to work that way. It's going to be 1,500 steps a day, and it's going to be prioritizing that energy supply and then using what you refer to in your books as a shotgun approach of 100 little things that I do during the day to make myself feel better. And it's not something you just do and then all of a sudden you're well and you go on about your life. I tried that. For me and my diseases, that's never going to work. And that's why a coach is going to be a part of my life for probably the rest of my life if I want the quality of life to be able to make my own schedule. And when I say that, I was in Spain in November. I was on a cruise in the Caribbean in December, and I'm leaving after the graduation today to head back to Houston, Texas to get on another airplane to take another Caribbean cruise this coming week. So I like being able to plan that. And if that means meeting with my coach so that she and I can budget and work on what I'm doing and how I'm living my life, hey, that doesn't sound so bad, Tami.
That's not a bad price to pay.
Not at all. Not at all. Because for years, I've laid in bed, looking out the window, waiting for people to come home, eating lunch in my bathtub, which is a place that I usually eat lunch because I'm so exhausted by lunchtime. It's just nice to have a coach that says, hey, you know what? Why don't you eat lunch 30 minutes earlier and you don't have to eat in the bathtub? And I know that's such a simple thing.
Yes.
But I need a coach to say those things to me so that I have a quality life and that I live my best life. And when one of my children call and say, Mom, can you do such and such? I can literally budget my energy the days before and the days after to be able to do that. And given the fact that I have 2 adult children, when they call, I want to be able to go because that window of opportunity has ended where I have their captive audience all the time. So.
Right. Exactly. And I know when you started this class and you started working with your coach, planning ahead to that trip to Spain was such a big thing. And at one point, even being worried if you were going to be able to go, were you going to get left behind in the hotel?
Exactly. So for me, I started this program of pain levels of a 10. My fibromyalgia was completely out of control, unbelievable brain fog. We have a 2-story house and just getting down the stairs was a big deal. So here we are in September starting the class and I'm thinking, okay, Thanksgiving week, I have committed to take my children with their spouses to Spain for the week. And am I going to be able to do anything? And I only missed one afternoon in 10 days in Spain. So one afternoon, I looked at everybody and I said, today has to be the day that I have to go rest. So they did something like go to a soccer stadium, something I would not want to do. And they modified the family schedule to accommodate the fact that I wasn't going to be available. And I was only in our room for about 3 hours. And when they got back, I was able to go to dinner. And that is a miracle. That is not something I take lightly. Leading up to Spain, I didn't even get my 1,500 steps in a day. Like there were days that I was like actively trying to only get in 800 steps because it was, like everyone said, an intentional choice to be available and to be present when I got there. And then to give myself enough grace when we got home to know, okay, you're going to get 10 days you walked every day. It was miles that we were walking. And when we got back, it was like, oh, it's Christmas and I need to get ready. And my coach said, no, you need a 10-day recovery. And then you can get ready for Christmas and get ready for your cruise. And I was like, you are so right, woman. She is on spot. So that's what I did. And to be honest with you, on December 18th, we went on a cruise. We got home on the 22nd. And we had a wonderful Christmas. I was able to do everything I wanted to do. It does take planning. It takes prioritizing, and it takes your calendar looking very different from a normal person's calendar. So if I were to tell somebody what my calendar was, I get 3 hours a day to do like paperwork or any kind of work. And the other hours are spent doing what I need to be doing. And that is my full-time new job is to care of myself. And I have to take a nap every day. I know that for some people that sounds like, oh, you shouldn't have to take a nap every day. But for me, given the fact that I have chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia, Epstein-Barr's been elevated my entire life, hypothyroidism, I could go on and on. A nap is necessary. I need that. I need 12 hours of sleep, and I need to only walk 1,500 steps a day. And if I will do those things, then I get to plan things. So, and it's hard. It's hard to give yourself enough grace to realize that, A, you're not normal. And in my case, I always thought, oh, I'll outgrow this rheumatoid, my hypothyroidism, it'll get better. My TMJ issues and the chronic headaches that I've had since I was 12, they're going to get better. And now I'm coming to the realization that it's not going to get better, but I can make better choices to make it better. And that's what happened in 2015 when I went through the program. Things got better, and then life started happening, and I had a captive audience, and I wasn't living my life by my weekly calendar. I was letting the calendar plan my week. And so it's just a different mindset. And I think going into it, realizing and giving yourself the grace that you are, in my case, I'm chronically ill, and that I get to choose a different way in life than a normal person. So, and I'm normal in my own right. Just it's a little bit different, and I have to tweak it a little bit. So,
right, exactly. It's such a perfect example of the quote that I said at the beginning, right? Once you know your limitations, once you live within those, you can go beyond them, right? So once you know, I need this much sleep, I can walk this many steps, like this is what I need to do to feel my best, I can do anything within that.
Exactly. That's exactly what it is. And it's realizing that it's okay. It's okay that I only do 1,500 steps. And my best friend is going, on our trip tonight. And I just didn't think I'd do that with her. And it's giving my life back. And that's a gift in itself.
It is. That's so awesome. Well, I know the question everybody is wondering is, okay, so you took back control of your calendar and you committed to doing all of these things, but what else did you do? What else did you do to improve your fibromyalgia? You're the one who improved the most, 75% from the beginning through the end. So what were some of those things? Was it just prioritizing yourself, or were there other things that you did as well?
Oh, no, it was definitely a shotgun approach. So for me, I have to be disciplined with my diet. I am a strong believer that gluten, dairy, corn, even in my case, kale, mushrooms, pineapple, and bananas, as well as eggs, can cause me excess inflammation. So most people think, oh, well, if I just give up gluten, well, I'm really learning that it's more for me than just gluten. It's grain, whether that's white rice is a grain. So even though it's gluten-free rice crackers, that's not necessarily good for me. And just being okay with that fact and planning my meals around that so that I do keep the inflammation down, because I do have so many diseases and the body is constantly attacking itself. So diet, of course, not exercise. So, which is kind of contra, everyone would think, oh, you should exercise. Well, for me, exercise is anything above 1,500 steps. So that may, if I decide to, let's just say, go out and do some things in the garage, that's exercise for me. And for me, my heart rate goes up just being in my garage, moving around with my arms. So, that's something that people really need to be aware of, and to just, if your heart rate's going up, you're exercising and it might be washing dishes. It doesn't matter. Really getting my list of my herbs and my medications, like writing it down and having a schedule and having, okay, this is when I need to take this. This is what works. This is how it works. And being aware of that as well. And then also being aware that there are going to be mornings that you're going to wake up and you are not going to be able to do your 3 hours of anything. You may just have to do 3 hours of rest and relaxation, and then followed with your lunch, your bath, your nap. And if that's it, just go with it. Go with the fact that, yes, for that day, you can't do what you want to do. Example being last Saturday at this very exact same time, we were having a practice for graduation. This is like huge importance to me. And I had to just give myself the grace that for that day, I had to do what I had to do to take care of myself so that today I could be packing a suitcase, going to graduation, and getting ready to leave my home to go on a trip that I would have never thought would be possible. So with that being said, I think that when I say shotgun approach, I truly mean it. I mean, I've been doing diffusion stress therapy, trying to figure out things in my life that cause me stress. Because if you ask me, I don't have any stress, but obviously, according to my body, I have a lot of stress. So, it's learning how to put your team together too. I mean, it's not just you and your coach, it's your whole team of people that are helping you. And also knowing that sometimes you have to ask for help, and it's okay with your family to ask for help, because by you asking for help, that means you're going to be available to them at a different time. Yeah. I'll give you for instance, if you're out of steps and the dishes need to be done, well, I could either do the dishes or I could wait in my easy chair and my husband could do the dishes, and then we could have tea together before I go upstairs and get ready for bed. But if I do the dishes, there's not going to be any tea. It's going to be dishes and then back into my bedtime routine. So, and getting yourself a schedule where you have a routine and getting your body used to thinking it's to itself, this is what we do at this time during the day. And really making that a meeting with yourself almost. So many of us make meetings with others and we prioritize things, but loving yourself and making a meeting with yourself, that I'll give you an example that for me, I have to be upstairs at 8:00. So by 8:30, I'm in the bathtub, and by 9, I'm going to sleep, because my body requires 10 hours with a 2-hour nap during the day. And that sounds impossible, maybe to some, but I've chosen that to be a lifestyle, because what my prior to this class was working 40 hours a week plus, going nonstop. Anytime anyone would call, I was the first one to help serve them, take care of them. What can I do? How can I help you? And the result is that I would do great for a week, and then I'd be in bed for 2 weeks. And then I'd get up and I'd think I'm well again, and let's do this again. And this push and crash cycle that I had not had when I left the class the first time was back, and it was back with a vengeance, and it wasn't changing. And so I had to make the choice to make it change. And I remember what happened. I had ordered your second edition of your book, and I posted it on Facebook because I just love me some Tami Stacklehouse. And I posted it because I wanted to make sure that those in our community, we live in a very small rural East Texas town, those in our community that I knew had fibromyalgia would buy the book. And because I'm in a small town, everybody knows my health issues. And so I'll have people that I really don't even know that it's a cousin of somebody that's, they'll say, we heard you had fibromyalgia, can you give me this? And it'll be in a Facebook message. And of course, I try to always help people, but I posted that day, and you said, you better give me a call or something to that effect. And I said to myself, yeah, she's right. I need to break down and do something about this. And for me, I just have to have somebody that holds me accountable. And that's what my coach does. Last Tuesday, she said, why do you sound so tired? And I said, well, last week we went to sushi and we stayed out till 11 one night. And then I stayed up at 11 another night. And she's like, oh, okay. Well, I think we need to pull out our calendar and figure out what time we're supposed to be going to bed and then get there. And so I made the announcement last Sunday as I was trying to recover from Saturday missing graduation. I made the announcement to my husband, I don't think those 11 o'clock nights work very well. So it was really nice because all this week he's like, it's 8:15. We better get ready. We better get ready. We got to go up. If you don't want to be crashed and burned.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. And it's so funny because we think that we should be internally motivated, right? Like there's this sort of idea out there that like you should just be able to do it, right? The whole Nike, just do it, right? But some of us are just not motivated that way. I'm exactly like you. Like I am always going to have a coach because I need that person to be accountable to. Otherwise, like we slip and, the bedtime hour slides.
Exactly. And it's that way, from my experience in being a 12-step program, if you don't have a sponsor and you're not calling and you're not holding, you're going to go back to your old habits and your old patterns. And so for me, I am to the point at 52 that if I'm going to live life, I better get going. And if that means reporting in to my coach and having her work with me, and hopefully one day I will have a schedule where I do things 3 hours in the morning, I take my nap, and I do 3 hours in the afternoon. But for right now, for this part of my life, I'm at 1,500 steps in 3 hours. And I am confident with time, my body will recover and that I will be to that point.
And you can't rush it.
No.
Your body will do it at its own pace.
No, and I want it right now. I want it already over with. But kind of the goal that I have is with my health the way it's been, there was no way I was going to be able to keep a grandchild. Not that I have any grandchildren on the way even, but that's firing this goal of like, if you're going to keep them for 3 or 4 hours, you need to make this your job. You need to make this your priority. And so that's what I'm working towards. And my coach is helping me so much to do that. And it's nice because she's got 3 daughters, similar ages as my children. We're going through some of the same things. And she has 7 grandchildren and is able to help. And so that gives me hope, that I'll be at that same point where I could go, yeah, today I can't do it, but maybe tomorrow, tomorrow I can do it. And managing my energy so that I can do that would be huge.
That's awesome.
Yes.
So congratulations, and take just a quick second. Is there anything you want to add for the people who are listening?
Oh, yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. I want to add something. Don't wait. It's just a simple email. It's a simple questionnaire. Even if you're doing the questionnaire again, like I was saying, hey, Tami, I need this, she's got so many different options for you, so many different plans for you. Give yourself your life back. I mean, I think that, we talk about that so many times, is giving yourself your life back. And that takes just one simple action. It's going to take you maybe 10 minutes, I think, if I recall. Remember, I have a fibro brain. So 10 to 15 minutes to fill a little questionnaire out for Tami. And she's going to hook you up with someone and get you in the right program so that you can have your life back. And you can at least know yourself well enough to know what type of lifestyle you need to create, not what our society says your lifestyle should be, or the number of steps our society says you should be walking each day, but what your body can do. So just go to her website, fill out the application, and get your life back. And maybe I'll meet you on one of these ships when I'm cruising. Who knows?
I love it. I love it. And I love you so much. Thank you for trusting me the first time. Thank you for trusting me the second time.
Oh, I just love you so much. I love you so much. And I've known you. I think we were in a online support group like in
Something like that.
14. Was that when we were doing that, before you even started doing this? And it's just awesome. It has just been an awesome experience. And you are just truly a gift to me. from
Thank
God.
you so much. And congratulations to you. Enjoy your third trip. I'm so proud of you. I can't even. So have fun, and you'll have to share with us when you get back.
Sure will. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Love you.
And that wraps up my interview with our graduates. If you want to hear the whole event, then remember we have that link on today's show notes. Just go to fibromyalgiapodcast.com/101. And I know we went a little bit longer today, but I really felt like it was important for you to hear more of Laura and Tami's stories. I know that they are not unique and that you may be able to relate to parts of those stories. So it was important for all of us that we share those stories. Now, at this point, you might be thinking, but what about me? I know that these women found a way to improve, but what about my situation? Can I improve 50 or even 75%? You know, we were joking during the event that sometimes people think that we're sort of magical unicorns to somehow accomplish something that a normal fibro person just can't do. And Tami insisted that we are still unicorns, but you can be unicorns with us. And the point there is, yes, you can do it too. These are normal fibro people who came into the class with very common situations and found ways to feel better. And they all found their own ways. It's not like it's a one-size-fits-all where I can just give you a recipe and you can make it at home. It's not like that. We give you a lot of information and guidance, but you figure out what works best for you, and we're there to help make it all make sense. Maybe you're thinking you've got too much going on. Maybe you're thinking, but I'm already doing pretty well. The thing is, life is always going to be busy. Life is always lifing. We all are a hot mess sometimes, and all of us can find ways to feel better. It's something that I even continue to strive for. Just a little bit better, and keep going. So to wrap up, I want to tell you two things. Number one, it is not your fault if you've been on the struggle bus, as Tami put it. Our medical system just isn't set up to really help fibro patients, so it's really not your fault if you've been stuck. But now that you're here and now that you've heard that there are ways to feel better and there are people that can help you, now you have a choice on where to go from here. The second thing I can tell you for sure is that this class that we're celebrating here today, the Certified Fibromyalgia Advisor training, is the best way I know to improve fibromyalgia symptoms. The stories you heard today are not unusual. It is not unusual to improve by 50%. We've been tracking our results for the last few years, and this class is right in line with everybody else. So if you are interested in possibly improving your fibromyalgia by 50 or even 75% or even just 10%, consider joining our next class. The next group starts in just a few weeks, and we'll have a link to where you can get more info and apply to join us in today's show notes. Just go to fibromyalgiapodcast.com/101. I'm also going to be sharing a special series here on the podcast starting next week, where I cover some of the most frequently asked questions about the Certified Fibromyalgia Advisor training program and about how to become a certified fibromyalgia coach. If you're interested in getting more information, definitely check out those bonus episodes. They're going to come out between our regular episodes. So if you're not interested, just skip those, no biggie. We'll still have our regular episodes. And if you're interested in working with a coach like Kirsten, Tami, and Laura did, we'll have that link in today's show notes as well. Again, that's fibromyalgiapodcast.com/101. See you here next time. And that wraps up another episode of the Fibromyalgia Podcast. I'm your coach, Tami Stacklehouse. For daily doses of hope, inspiration, and practical advice, come hang out with me on Facebook. Visit facebook.com/fibrocoach to find my personal coaching page and connect with me directly. To find the show notes, additional resources, or to schedule a consultation with me or one of my coaches, visit fibromyalgiapodcast.com.